Ahoy, Nakama, and welcome aboard, or walk the plank. We're your co-captains, Adam and Ed, and this is the Void Century Podcast. Your weekly deep dive into One Piece lore, lost treasures, and the wildest fan theories from the Grand Line to the Void Century. From ancient secrets to Yonko chaos and fresh chapter breakdowns, if you're chasing Laugh Tale, you're in the right crew. Yarg! Hit subscribe and let's set sail. Hello, and welcome back to the Void Century Podcast. Ed and Adam here today to bring you episode 37. Given that we're on break, we're going to take this as a point to go ahead and discuss Luffy's mother. With the introduction of Tritoma, it has sparked a discussion in the fandom about Luffy's mother and if Tritoma could possibly be Luffy's mother. Ed, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So we saw Tritoma, and last chapter was chapter 1156, and the chapter number ends in 5-6. So 5-6 has already been kind of associated with Luffy just because 5 and 6, if you say the words by themselves or the numbers by themselves, can roughly be said as Gomu, which means rubber. And Oda has kind of shown Luffy with the number 5-6 a few times in the manga and anime, so we already know that that's kind of his number. There's also a theory going around that his final bounty will end at 5.6 billion berries, million berries, I don't remember, but it'll end up with a 5-6 number because Roger was 5-5. So there's a lot of these theories going around. So we know that 5-6 again is related to Luffy. So 5 is Go in the Sino-Japanese counting system, and then 6 is Mutsu or Mu in the native Japanese counting system. Japan, I guess, has a couple different ways to count the same numbers that they kind of use interchangeably for whatever reason. And yeah, just in contrast, Roku is 6 in the Sino-Japanese, and Itsu is 5 in the native Japanese counting system. So yeah, Gomu for 5-6. The other thing that people immediately noticed was that her ear kind of looks like it has a 5 in it, and then she has this hair swirl going on that looks like a 6, and they're kind of right next to each other. So it looks like there's a permanent 5-6 in her character design whenever we see her on a panel. So again, a couple of instances of 5-6. So yeah, that's kind of the beginnings of the 5-6 theory and the Gomu theory, and Luffy being his mother. Or sorry, Tritoma being Luffy's mother. So yeah, and then moving forward, she does seem to be an appropriate age to be Luffy's mother because she's probably in her early to mid 50s if she were still alive. And yeah, so that's kind of the beginnings of it. Do you want to talk about maybe love sickness? And yeah, I'll just say that she did pass away due to love sickness, but we don't know exactly what love sickness, what really caused it, who caused it, and whatnot. But Adam, you want to kind of talk about what love sickness is and what we've seen in the One Piece universe so far with it?
Sure, Ed. I can tell you all about love and love sickness. So we know that the women in the Kuja tribe, I don't know if all the women, but specifically the empresses, they all suffer from love sickness, which is just this overwhelming desire and passion and feelings of love towards the object of their affection. Now we've seen this with Gloriosa most recently when it comes to Roger. We see this Boa and her affections when it comes to Luffy. So we do know that the love sickness affects empresses. Usually, it's an extreme version of emotions that lovers would normally suffer when they're courting each other, and it seems to be rather psychosomatic. Again, it's manifested physically, like elevated heart rate, sweating, and this just undying desire to do whatever this person wants you to do in order to be exactly what they want. So the feelings have also been described to be like a hurricane, and they hit when they're least expected. The victim also suffers unbearable pain in their heart when their love is away or attempts to leave them. And then, much like a mother and their child, or a father going to protect his family. When their love is present, their physical abilities are increased, like they're stronger, they're faster, but it could also render them powerless, right? Have you ever been so in love with somebody that it takes your breath away and you turn to jello and you freeze up? We've seen Hancock or Boa become like a totally different person and is blinded by love when they see Luffy. So perhaps Tritoma had similar feelings for Dragon. And we know that if the afflicted by the love sickness suppress their emotions, it could weaken them and cause them extreme pain. And their health can actually continue to decline until eventually it kills them. And we know it's been stated that this has killed many empresses in the past. And it is, again, as mentioned previously, it's unknown if the normal Kuja or Amazonians can suffer from this sickness. But we know that in order to cure or at least abate the symptoms of this love disease, the Empress must accept the emotions of the fact that they love a man, and then they must, act on these emotions and be with the one that they love. And perhaps if all Amazonians or the Kuja suffer from this love sickness, perhaps that's why they can't have any men on the island, because the Kuja will all be afflicted by this love disease and then just wither away.
Yeah, it just seems like a very unfortunate situation. But on the other hand, love is kind of great to be feeling as well. So there's kind of like that dichotomy of crappy feelings sometimes associated with love. But hopefully, like if they cure it, they have a happy life. And I know that Gloriosa and
Shaki?
Shaki, they both cured it probably because they're both alive. So it's interesting because we see Gloriosa and she's kind of shorter, whereas Shaki, I forgot her how to say her full name, but
Shakuyaku.
yeah, Shakuyaku, she's still tall and like looks young. So I wonder if she was able to, have like a fulfilling love life with her interest, who was Silver's Rally. And then if Gloriosa wasn't able to have a fulfilling romance, and that's why she kind of doesn't look tall and young still compared to
I
Shaki.
think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
Because Roger's dead, and if she loved Rox eventually, then Rox is dead as well. So it's unrequited love, right?
right, exactly. So yeah, did Tritoma die of love sickness because she couldn't follow Monkey D. Dragon? So that's kind of like a proposed question because we do know that she did, pass away from love sickness, but do you think that Dragon was the reason she passed away because maybe he had some sort of thing to do with the Revolutionary Army and he couldn't be around her long enough? Or maybe she's not allowed to leave her island, so she couldn't follow him even if she wanted to, because it's against the rules of her kingdom. So do you think that maybe that is the reason, or maybe something else?
I think it's possible. I was talking to you about this earlier, but I think that there's a potential that maybe she was imprisoned or like captured by somebody that would have prevented her from being with Dragon if she is Luffy's mother. And it could also give like some motivation for Dragon to hate the world government a bit more if the world government are the ones that trapped Tritoma or imprisoned her and led to her death. We know the world government's very scummy, and they did actually kidnap Boa and her sisters. They were slaves for a while, so it is possible. I don't
Yeah.
know, but we don't know exactly what led to Tritoma's death, if she even is Luffy's mother. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, the other thought is that maybe she had love sickness because she wasn't able to stay with Monkey D. Luffy. So let's assume that she is Luffy's mother and she had a son with Dragon, but because Luffy is a male, he wouldn't be allowed to stay in the Kuja kingdom because this is a kingdom for women only. So they probably would have had to exile him shortly after he was born. and maybe she might have had love sickness from being separated from her child.
Yeah, that's a really interesting wrinkle too. Like, I don't think it's ever explicitly stated that love sickness is for romantic love only. Like, what's even more powerful than romantic love, right? It's the love you have for your child. So maybe that ends up killing the empresses, right? Like, if they are unable to be with their child for whatever reason, the love sickness is like even worse, right? And it's almost like an immediate death.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And yeah, moving forward, we know that Tritoma was also described as benevolent by Boa Hancock because Tritoma pardoned Gloriosa for the crime of abandoning the nation. So I guess it's illegal for someone from the Kuja kingdom to leave the island, and Gloriosa had love sickness apparently for Roger. So if she suffered from love sickness from Roger, and Tritoma also has suffered from love sickness, she would totally, completely understand Gloriosa's position and helplessness of trying to resist that urge and getting into more pain for that. So she would understand why someone in that predicament would want to leave the country to get cured. And yeah, so it was pretty cool that Boa kind of looked up to Tritoma for being, benevolent and pardoning former leader. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, do you think that Tritoma has Haki? And if so, like what level of Haki or what kind of Haki abilities might she have?
I mean, definitely, if she was an empress at one point in time, we know all the Kuja at least have some form of hockey. Definitely armament hockey because they use it with their arrows. That was I think, one of the first time we saw hockey poured into a weapon. But we do know that the empresses, at least, they do have the color of the kings, right? And that's why they were like so blown away that Luffy had it too. So I think it's definitely possible. The Kuja, as like a lineage and a bloodline, have shown to have very strong hockey abilities. So I feel like it only makes sense and would like increase Luffy's pedigree, and perhaps it's even where he got, you know, his Conqueror's Haki from in the first place. Have we ever seen Garp use Conqueror's Haki? I know we've seen him clash with it, but has he ever done like the shockwave that we've seen normal of like hockey, or excuse me, Conqueror's Haki 1.0?
Yeah, so I haven't seen either Garp or Dragon really display that like that Conqueror's Haki, so like making people pass out like in front of them. I haven't seen either of them demonstrate that. That's not to say that neither of them have it. I would say that if I were to put a list of people that haven't been shown Conqueror's Haki that might have it, those two would definitely be on that list because they have a lot of really powerful and impressive feats, but we haven't seen it. And I mean, obviously, we haven't seen Tritoma have it either, but it does make sense that she would have it being an empress and, like she's like the leader of a nation. It makes sense that she would have that type of Haki. But yeah, it would be pretty cool if Luffy's Conqueror's Haki actually ended up coming from his maternal side of things, on top of, just being a badass himself. Okay, so then let's move forward. So Hancock, was she the successor directly after Tritoma, do you know?
Yes, I think so. I think it's been stated that she took the throne from Tritoma. We
Okay,
don't know what happened to her.
so it would actually make sense that why Boa would be attracted to Luffy because of that, because she really looked up to this woman, and so maybe there's just like that unrealized familiarity of Luffy that she doesn't really understand why herself, and obviously Luffy doesn't understand at all. But that familiarity of, oh, hey, that he reminds me of someone, and maybe like he has similar demeanors as his mother, just even though he wasn't raised by her. So like if Tritoma is Luffy's mother, he might have share some, you know, little quirks, little gestures or facial expressions or something like that that would kind of immediately make Boa, you know, kind of just attracted to him.
I was gonna say, yeah, we don't see like too much of Tritoma's temperament really. Like we just see her carry on like a whole bunch of newspaper or messages at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see her more, but given where we are in the flashback, like we've seen the Kuja kind of part ways with the Roger Pirates and everybody else. So who knows how long it's going to be until we see Tritoma again, right?
Yeah, true. And then on the other side of Luffy's parentage, Dragon. So if Tritoma is Luffy's mother, then Dragon would be his father, and he already had, you know, Kuja person attracted to him in the past, so that there's a chance that maybe his son would be able to attract a Kuja empress as well. So yeah, it just kind of makes sense why Boa might be attracted to Luffy with this additional detail. Not that like it's required for Boa to be attracted to Luffy for this reason, but it just kind of makes some sense and paints some color to the picture.
Here's an interesting wrinkle, though. Like, if Tritoma is Luffy's mother, and obviously Dragon would be Luffy's father, then how how would they have met? What's like the speculation there? Do you think that is a possibility that Tritoma was captured and Dragon was a marine and like liberated her or something like that? But it doesn't seem like a revolutionary would normally come in contact with the island of women, right?
Yeah, so during this time, like he still might have been a Marine too, but most likely by now, I would say, like by the time Tritoma becomes the Empress, Dragon was either out of the Marines or like about to get out and being like a informant and leaking like, sensitive information type of person. So like he was definitely out mentally at the very least of the Marines. So yeah, it would make sense then that it was some sort of revolutionary related activity or freedom related activity. Maybe, you know, they are kind of quote unquote exotic, being a land of women and from Amazon Lily. So yeah, I could totally see it being he might have saved like Dragon might have rescued Tritoma and the Kuja pirates at some point, and that led to attraction and potentially Luffy.
Very interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's go to the next talking point, which was, oh, you brought this up to me, so you took the next one.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought it was interesting that Kuma was the one who sent Luffy to Amazon Lily at the end of the Saboti Archipelago arc. So, given that Kuma had a relationship or has a relationship with Dragon, it could be possible that he knew something about Luffy's mother. And if Luffy's mother was Tritoma, it would just add another layer to the fact that Luffy was sent to Amazon Lily to begin his training from Kuma, who potentially knew his past. And at that point, with Tritoma being deceased, I don't know if that could have been an element of him wanting to send Luffy to Amazon Lily. But I guess maybe so Luffy, if he was a descendant of Tritoma, he could like have a connection to his homeland and train there and learn Haki there. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I really like this idea. It does kind of help help add more layers to this theory. I do want to play a little devil's advocate here and say maybe both Akuma and Boa being Shichibukai, maybe he felt bad for Boa and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do you a solid and send your lover boy over there." So it could have been for that reason too, potentially. But I like your reasoning better, or maybe it was both reasons. Who knows? Like, it doesn't have to be either or; it could be both.
Are you saying that Kuma was just trying to get Boa a date?
Yeah, I mean, the love sickness is a serious disease in the One Piece world. Like it's deadly. Like we apparently like many empresses have succumbed to it. So
Listen, listen. I think Kuma being a trafficker is just big world government propaganda. So I think you should watch yourself, Ed.
all right, all right. Okay, this actually ends our Tritoma is Luffy's mother theory section. So let's move on to other potential Luffy's mother candidates. And the first one we're gonna bring up is honestly, at this point, one of the biggest memes in all of One Piece. And most people have heard this theory. It's honestly really funny. And what makes it a good theory is that we couldn't completely rule it out as a possibility. And we probably still, honestly, I think at this point we probably can rule it out. But yeah, let's talk about it. We've talked about it before in the past, but let's talk about it again today. The theory that Crocodile is Luffy's mom. You want to take it away, Adam?
Sure. Yeah, this is a really old theory that we know that during Impel Down, it was stated that Ivankov knows a secret about Crocodile. And given the nature of Ivankov's hormone fruit, Ivankov has the ability to swap people's sexes, and Crocodile has those crazy facial scars going on that's most prominently. So it's been a huge theory back in the day that perhaps Crocodile was born as a woman and Ivankov helped Crocodile transition into the crocodile that we know today. And furthermore, Oda's even drawn Crocodile as a woman. So that is canon, given it was in an SBS. We do know what Crocodile looks like as a woman. So Oda has played into the theory a bit, and it's always kind of been a joke that maybe Crocodile had some dealings with Dragon in the past, and maybe it was even more than just business. We don't know. It's a meme, of course, but if we're discussing Luffy's mother, then why don't we talk about the meme a little bit and just see how deep the rabbit hole goes, if it were? What
Yeah,
do you
and
think?
and to add on to that is that some people were thinking like they're trying to tie in the whole Tritoma as Luffy's mother to the crocodile is Luffy's mother theory and say that Crocodile was Tritoma and Ivankov gender bent her into Crocodile. But as you mentioned before, Oda had that SBS where he drew an image of Crocodile gender bent into a woman, and she does not look like Tritoma. So I think that at least we can rule out that Crocodile is Tritoma theory because they do not look the same. They don't have like they just have like a slightly different facial features and they don't look like the same person to me. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that one out there too because some people were trying to tack on an extra layer to the theory and it doesn't work. But to add on to that, like it's kind of fun to think about because like maybe Tritoma wanted to leave the island and sorry, Amazon Lily Island and it's illegal. So in order to hide, she just gender bent and decided that she was going to live her life as someone else and become Crocodile. So that's a theory. I don't agree with it. I think that it's wrong, but it's still fun to talk about with friends.
Well, we know that Crocodile as a person is responsible for, toppling countries in search of the ancient weapons. So I don't necessarily know if that's the ambition of a former empress of the Kuja, but
True.
who knows? But given that Crocodile does in fact topple countries, perhaps that's some kind of relationship that he, she, they could have had with Dragon, right? And the relationship between Crocodile and Ivankov's never really been explored. So we don't know when they would have met up in the past, what that secret could be all about. And if you think about it, really, the timeline fits. We've gone back, we've scoured the archives, and Crocodile would have been about 20 years old by the time Luffy was born. So it is possible.
Yeah, and actually, I want to go back to what you're saying about the relationship between Crocodile and Ivankov. So my theory is that Crocodile was probably some slave that the revolutionaries saved in the past, is kind of where my mind is at, because that's just what makes the most sense. So they were kind of, he was probably freed from the world government in some way or another, and that's the secret. But again, like your guess is as good as mine, because, there's not
Have,
really any evidence.
so, to make it a little steamy here, have we ever seen Crocodile shirtless? Would we know if he's got any kind of tattoos? Because if you're a slave or property of the world government, they normally put the mark of the dragon on you.
Oh, I don't believe like maybe like he was injured and we saw him, but yeah, I don't believe he has a tattoo like that or a marking like that that we've at least witnessed because I would have known of it by now.
I think that was a big thing with Boa, right? She had that marking on her back.
Oh, true.
And
Yeah.
the Sun Pirates too, if you remember, Fisher Tiger, they all branded the sun over the
Over the tattoo. Yeah, to claim it
yeah.
as their own marking instead of someone else's. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but, if we want to move a little bit forward and talk about mothers and motherly instincts, Crocodile actually did protect Luffy at Marineford from Draco Mihawk himself. I mean, was this just to escape or to pay Luffy back? Or, I mean, was it that mother's instinct to protect Ed? We just don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Um,
My thought is that it was just he respected Luffy. Like he was like, "Hey, Luffy, you bested me. Respect. I got you. I got you this time."
You freed me from prison, so I'm gonna put myself in mortal danger and fight this guy with the crazy eyes for no reason.
Well, was it
That
really mortal
tracks.
danger though? I feel like Crocodile as a Logia user is pretty safe. Like I don't think that Mihawk was going super armament Haki on his attacks against Luffy at the time.
Bro, bro, Mihawk's sword is always hockeyed up. It's literally black. That's the whole point.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But yeah,
Like, I
so
mean,
Crocodile is resilient.
he's Brazilian.
No, resilient.
I know, I'm teasing.
Although
All right,
Luffy is supposedly Brazilian if he were to be born in the earth of our world.
confirmed. You heard it here, folks. Yeah, that was actually confirmed in an old SBS as well. But moving forward, I guess if we want to rule out some of the memes, this is something that we have touched on a little bit previously in some of our past episodes. But there has been the discussion that maybe Luffy's mom is Garp's daughter, and that's the whole relationship between Luffy and Garp, and it's not through Dragon as we have always assumed. So, like we touched on previously, it's never been explicitly stated that Dragon is Garp's son. Garp always refers to him as like my grandson's dad or like my kid's kid or something along those lines. But he never refers to him as like his son or anything of the like. And we know Garp tends to be a hard guy to get along with anyway, so perhaps just that's just kind of banter. But it is strange. And Luffy tends to look and act more like Garp than Dragon, really. I mean, they have the same facial features and structure. They both have the scar under their eye, like the same spot. They used to have that gag where they would like constantly fall asleep all the time. Like when we first got introduced to Garp, he was like falling asleep with like the dog mask and stuff. And Luffy used to have like narcolepsy back in the day.
Oh yeah, I
Like he'd
forgot
fall
about
asleep when you
that.
were talking to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, even more rudimentary, right? Like, what are their techniques really boil down to? It's just like really big punches. And like, in a world where devil fruits do exist, like, you don't have to punch people, but it just seems like that's what they specialize in, right?
Yeah, so I was thinking that just to talk about Dragon never being referred to it by Garp as his own son, maybe like I always kind of perceived it as maybe it was because Garp was just so disappointed in his son not only leaving the Marines but becoming like the leader of the Revolutionary Army. So it's like, becoming like the anti what Garp's life is all about. So to me, I always kind of read it as I'm not happy with the decisions my son made, so I won't directly refer to him if possible. I'll make indirect references, so I'll be like, "Oh, the father of my grandson," but I won't make it like a direct reference to him.
Totally understand. And that does track in a way, but he's still, I mean, Luffy's a Yonko at this point. I mean, he still refers to Luffy as his grandson. And
Yeah, that's
think about it
true.
though, right? I the Marines as an organization still keep Garp around if his direct descendant is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. I mean, as good as Garp is and given all the secrets he knows, like at that point they could just take him out. You
But
know
like you
what I
said,
mean?
his direct descendant is also a Yonko. So I'd say that the Revolutionary Army is probably traditionally a bigger threat to the world government than a Yonko, but a Yonko having the Nika fruit is probably the biggest threat to the world government at this point. But prior to that, it was probably the Revolutionary Army. Yeah.
I would say so. At this point, Garp's been captured, and we don't know what's going on with the rest of Sword. They're still playing games with Blackbeard at this point, but given that things are heating up, do you think they're going to really, to derail this a bit, do you think they're going to play like a decisive role in the final battle?
Who?
Sword?
Oh, of course they are. Yeah, they're gonna definitely be huge because Sword's what's gonna end up happening with Sword is they're gonna become the new world government. So they're gonna be the world government under probably Kobe, and yeah, I think that they're just gonna be like the new world government, and they're gonna be the uncorrupt version or the less corrupted version.
I agree with you. I was more asking along the lines of what role do you think they'll play in the final battle? Or
Oh, in the final battle, what they'll end up doing is they'll help fight against Emu, most likely. As well as
it
Garp,
sounds
or sorry, not Garp, as well as Blackbeard. So I think those are the two bad guys that need to be quote unquote taken out. Is going to be Emu and Rocks, and I'm still not sure who the final
Blackbeard.
boss is going to be. Is it going to be Blackbeard or is it going to be Emu? It could go either way. I'm not sure
Yeah,
yet.
I don't really know how it's gonna shape up, right? Because like, is Luffy gonna join forces with Blackbeard to take down Emu? Like,
Right, but when his predecessors literally did the opposite, they sided with the world government to take out Zebek.
yes, it's very strange. Again, let's to bring it back to Naruto. This is the whole like I gotta team up with the other half to take out the big bad, and then we'll settle our differences afterwards, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's very true. But I'm just saying that historically, they they teamed up with the world government instead of with like the two sides of the, like the chaotic D, like what we call the chaotic D and the good D. Those two sides historically, it was the good D that sided with the Marines and the government to take out the chaotic D. So
Yeah.
I'm not certain that it'll happen where the chaotic D and the lawful D will side against
Ooh.
the world government. I don't know because historically we saw the opposite.
Hey Ed,
Yeah.
if you put two D's back to back, you get a circle. You get a one piece.
Sure, sure, that's true.
I'm like Charlie with the meme wall right now. But let's bring it back, all right? So, if Luffy's mom is really Garp's daughter, this really is like the impetus for Luffy to be a Marine, for Garp to want Dragon and Luffy's mom to be a Marine. This could be like the whole setup for where Dragon would even meet Luffy's mom in the first place in the Marines, right? We know something had to happen that made Dragon turn and really made him hate the world government for whatever reason. We speculated that it was maybe him witnessing God Valley. We know he really turned at Ohara, but something had to plant those seeds. Luffy's mom is still a huge question mark, and if somebody messes with the love of your life, that would literally make you declare vengeance for your entire life, dedicate your entire life to wanting to mess with these people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, again, we always thought that, Garp wanted Luffy and Ace to be Marines because Garp is just a Marine and he just, lawful good. He just wants everybody to be a Marine. But then again, Sword is also a thing and we don't know exactly what happened. Do you think Garp looks at the Marines as kind of like a protection thing? Like, hey, we can plot from within, but in the meantime, like, you know, keep your enemies close.
Yeah, I think
So,
that he's trying to be the change that he wants in the Marines. Like, so he's becoming the change that he wants to see in the Marines. And you know what? Going back to Dragon and Garp's relationship, maybe Garp really wanted Dragon to join Sword with him and take care of the world government from inside with him together. And Dragon probably maybe started doing it and eventually left and joined and formed the Revolutionary Army. So maybe that's where their kind of like issues stemmed from, was not necessarily him leaving the Marines specifically, but not helping Garp with Sword.
How would it make you feel about Garp as a character if the world government did do something to his daughter and he stuck around and served them faithfully like a dog?
Well, he did have a dog outfit.
That's what I'm saying. It would really. I mean, I love Garp as a character. Like he's like the old experienced grandfather. He's like really crazy when it comes to power, but I mean, it would really. I feel like it would hurt Garp's character if he just allowed his daughter to be, taken by the world government and did nothing about it and still served them faithfully, albeit plotting from within, and could set up the dominoes to be their downfall. But it seems a little bit out of character for him just to sit there and grin and bear it, right?
Yeah, I don't really have any faith in the idea that Luffy's mother was like long term captured by the Marines and was also Garp's daughter. Like I don't think that I don't like I know that we're exploring all different options and that's why we're doing this thought experiment, but I don't believe that Luffy's mother was Garp's daughter, is what I'm trying to get at.
I get it. We're just doing it as a thought experiment.
Right.
But another interesting thought would be that if this is the case, then that would mean that Luffy would have inherited the will of the D from Garp and from his mother and not from his father that we thought previous, right? And we do see that there are women in the series that do hold the will of D. We saw that with Ace's mom, Portgas D. Rouge, right?
That's true.
Or
Yeah,
Rogue
we did.
Rouge.
I think
So there is precedent, and they were brothers. So you never know. And again, this could also be why Garp is always clashing with Dragon. I mean, they are like opposed to each other. One's a vice admiral, the other's a revolutionary, and I guess their goals do align, but they're just doing it in drastically different ways, right?
right.
Sword exists as an element to take the world government down.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that they don't have a great relationship, it seems like, but maybe after all things are said and done, they might be able to rekindle like assuming they both survive, they might be able to rekindle their relationship and outwardly express their love for one another again.
I hope so. Do you think that Garp is going to survive the final battle?
I think that he probably will. He is definitely a candidate to not survive. Same with Dragon. I think they both are candidates. But I think that the story that Oda tells is, he rarely includes people passing away. And then he includes mostly, like even if they get defeated, they come back and we see how they change over time. So I think that that's kind of the story that Oda has been telling. So I don't expect many deaths in after the final battle. Like, maybe some bad guys will pass away, but typically good guys there might be like one or two big death scenes in the final battle, but I don't expect it to be like too many like what Naruto had or other series.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Given that what we've seen previous to this, I don't foresee a whole bunch of deaths. But then again, I was the guy that said all the scabbards were going to die. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But to bring things back a little bit and on a happier note, like we don't know anything about Garp's wife or partner or Luffy's grandmother. We don't know anything about her. I mean, it's very manga-like not to talk about the mothers and the grandmothers. But again, we know nothing about her or her temperament. So really, Luffy's mother and grandmother are like complete question marks that we know nothing about.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know much about either of them, and yeah, I think that that's kind of it for the theory talk for the day.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining our mother episode. This has been episode 37 of the Void Century podcast, and thanks for sailing with us. That's it for this voyage of the Void Century podcast. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you sail for One Piece content. Catch our bite-sized theories and lore on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Until next time, whether you're seeking the poneglyphs or unraveling the history behind the will of the D, listen to the voice of all things and we'll see you on our next voyage.